yep,
So this
504,000.
was not raised
That's
yet?
in reference to.
No, we only have about $1,000 raised.
Yep.
What?
Oh, that's what we're trying to raise, 504,000.
Which, if we get this amount, we wouldn't even have to claim this property that we're looking at, because they offered to sell me this building for this much.
So what's,
And there's 4 floors here. And, you know, if you ever go to the bathroom, feel free to just look around.
I don't think people understand how serious a university is.
Oh, don't worry, in the speech, we're going to go over that. Trust me. All right, let me just get through the things we read every meeting, because I kind of got off track, and I got excited. I need finance, and I need it badly. So meanwhile, these dirty Temple number 1s, huh?
Close it for the noise.
Oh, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
No, that's fine.
These dirty Temple number 1s, they're collecting taxes for more. That's what they're doing. I know this because a dirty Moore texted me by an accident talk about taxes. And that, you know, all the grand governors owe. Oh, look. And I'll tell you right now, they're not doing that with that fiat, because I went to Chicago and they're in a storefront.
No, I ain't doing nothing with it. I'm from there, I can verify it.
and ain't trying to come together.
You know what they told me? This is what they told me. They said, we're not letting you through the Adab chamber because you associate with Taj Street Bay. That's what they told me.
That's just an excuse.
No, that's.
It is
that's
an
by
excuse because the
design.
Adab chamber was 120 notes.
Yeah, but I know for a fact Temple 5001 South Wabash, the 501c brings in $234,830.
How much?
$234,836 and 12 cents. I googled it on Facebook. It was easy. That's just Temple 1.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't look up the other 2.
Yeah, there's a lot of Temple ones.
But Temple 1 claims that he opened.
Which Temple one?
5001 South Wabash.
Oh, okay.
Claimed that he opened the other 2.
Mm.
They're not doing anything with the finance.
It's not funny, but I'm
It's
laughing. at it.
Except
embezzlement.
putting it
It's
in there.
embezzlement with the
Right.
finances. What's
Except
going
putting it
on.
in their pocket.
Oh, it's definitely going in the pocket.
Mm.
But when I brought it up.
Because if you see
those.
those temples,
Of course not.
They've been doing
they
it.
don't look like they're getting that kind of profit a year if you look at the temples.
Well, yeah, well, actually, they doing something with it now, cause the one, they already built a wing.
Oh, okay.
Some of it.
They got nice cars and all that. So I'll say it again, I need finance and I need it badly. If it wasn't for more, I would have walked here, just so you know. And this isn't expensive, so don't think that,
Show them your phone.
oh, I got an iPhone 5. And, if I press the home button,
It doesn't work.
it don't work.
My phone is cracked.
But anyway, I gotta
You can
prove
dress
nothing.
yourself, it's fine.
Yeah, I gotta prove nothing. Yeah. I need finance, not finances, and I need it badly. So I can show aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without either prophet being head. It has been proven by my works, which I have performed in the past few years. And just for the record, I know I joke around a lot, but that's because a lot of these Moors are boring. And, you know, let's have fun with this. We're already in a bad situation, so let's have fun on the way out. You know, we got nothing else to lose. They already stole everything. To the members of the Moor Science Temple of America, this is the instructions from your prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Be faithful unto your forefathers' divine and national creed, that you will be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world. I'm just joking. Allah is the one that judges the world. And his judgment is on now, but the weak can comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, I, Noble Drew Ali. That's why many hearts have been turned to stone. Many have eyes to see but cannot see, ears to hear but cannot hear, lest they will be confounded of their sins. These are trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they're trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid, and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, You fear not what you hear or see, but will sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your profit and your movement. Watch your enemies there, Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest. And the ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah will bless you for your good work. Peace to the divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Now, interestingly enough, I posted a picture of me with a gun on social media, which all these Europeans do all the time. Go to YouTube, you see these Europeans with tanks and all that.
Ranges in their backyard.
Sniper rifles on YouTube with millions of views. And Amor from so-called Temple No. 1 commented and was like, I'm causing confusion. Who's your Grand Sheik and what temple? Da, 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 da. So I called him a coward. He got mad, but I explained to him why he's a coward. I said, these Europeans are locking our people up for victimless crimes, and you're questioning me about having a gun in my hand. What about these Europeans locking our people up for victimless crimes? How about these Europeans stealing our mothers' estates based on so-called foreclosure? What about all these illegal and illegal traffic stops where our people are dying? You got nothing to say about that, though.
I'm pretty
So
sure.
I called them what they are. Cowards. And then they said, let me know next time you go to Chicago.
Oh.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Yeah, I dropped some names. I said, ask so-and-so and so-and-so who I am. Because when I went there, they know very well who we were. You know. So they're trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. So don't be confused. I'm not confused. Prophet warns all Muslims to be read in every meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. We're for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be a severe consequences. We're for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings towards the temple or the prophet, or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. This is a holy and divine, oh, this is my favorite part. All true Moors will, meaning you have a choice, and must, meaning you don't have a choice, obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. Any questions on that? Give it to Izzy. Someone called and then it's cut off. I'll say that again. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. Any questions on that? If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their carding button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where the prophet found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Peace, your divine prophet. I skipped the part. The prophet is therefore sending out the divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Peace, your divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali. So now, in honor of Prophet's birthday, I would ask you all who want to participate in the Moorish American prayer to please rise, face east, which is that way. 5 fingers on the left, 2 fingers on the right, and then just repeat after me. Allah,
Allah,
Father of the universe,
Father of the universe,
Father of love,
Father of love,
truth, peace,
peace,
freedom,
freedom,
and justice. Allah is my guide, my protector, and my salvation, by night, and by day, through his holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Amen. Peace. Now, I was having a conversation with my cousin Janaea one day, and she was talking about how a lot of the churches are dogmatic, and how she doesn't really necessarily see the necessity of the Moorish American prayer. I didn't have anything to say against it, because I have my own belief. But I remember one time I was placed in a cell for helping a Moor in court, and that's what I recited over and over and over again, just so my thoughts didn't go to anything else. Because in that, when you're in that situation in front of these Europeans and they got you in chains, fear will come. So, in anger. So to avoid all of that, I just kept reciting the Moorish American prayer. That's it. So even if you don't want to believe, whatever, I don't care what you think or whatever, I'm telling you it may help you. So even if you don't believe I should do this every day, because we don't do it here every day, But I still know it off the top of my head because I know in situations like that, I'm going to be angry. I'm going to want to do something that I shouldn't do. So I'd rather just mention the prophet's name, right?
And it could be other mantras too, right?
Yeah, it can be anything you want. It's just, they try to tell me to take my fez off, and I said no. So I was in the cell with my fez on.
Straight like that.
Yeah, just like that. And I was like, since I got this fez on, I might as well conjure up that energy. So now, let's get into why we're here, right? So if you don't know, you're here for the Rise of the Moors University. Yay!
Hey, seriously.
Like I said, I have this whole 12-page speech.
Only 12?
Yeah. This is actually from like a year and a half ago. It was for something else that I never did because those Moors weren't serious. So I decided to use it for today. My cousin Janae and I worked on this before she went to school for programming, so that's why she hasn't been involved or as much. But before she decided to, do her thing with school, we kind of worked on this together. We're up all night at the old temple. And here's basically the university, this is what we called it. Rise of the Moors University of Higher Science. That's what we called it. So that's technically the official name. Rise of the Moors University is shorter. Right? It don't matter what it's called. Only thing that matters is the quality of information that the children and students are getting. Right? So I'm just going to read it. That's it. I'm just going to read it. As our prophet informed us, from our schools come the guiders of our nation. Very simple. Then we have the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, the right of indigenous families and communities to retain shared responsibility. So a shared responsibility. Shared responsibility. I'll say it one more time. Shared responsibility. For the upbringing, training, education, and well-being of their children. Again, shared responsibility. That's why they call it social security. It's not a number, it's shared responsibility. And education, well-being of their children, consistent with the rights of the child. Article 14, indigenous people have the right to establish and control their own educational systems and institutions, providing education in their own languages in a manner appropriate to their cultural methods of teaching and learning. This is why you've heard me say multiple times, if not, you're hearing me now. We might even have 5-year-olds in jurisprudence classes with 20-year-olds. And that's going to be fine. Because some people excel in certain areas of study than others, which is perfectly fine. So go do that. Be the master of that while everyone else is the master of something else, so then we can come together as a community and actually get something established. Instead of, I'm the only guy who can be in charge, so you got to listen to me. Which is stupid, right? Which is what all these idiots are doing at the temples. Clause 2. Indigenous individuals, particularly children, have the right to all levels and forms of education of the state without discrimination. Clause 3. States shall, in conjunction with indigenous people, which means these Europeans are obligated to us, right? Take effective measures, meaning that they have to participate, in order for indigenous individuals, particularly children, including those living outside their communities, to have access, when possible, to an education in their own culture and provided in their own language. So if we have a Rise of the Moors University here, and a Moor wants to come from somewhere else, hey, European, we need X amount of fiat for this plane ticket or train ticket for this Moor to come out here. Oh, it says in your obligation that Obama signed that you have to take effective measures where appropriate when there's people outside of the community. This is me fixing my glasses so I can read it and tell it to them. You understand what I'm saying? So we're not in this alone, right? Article 15. Indigenous people have the right to the dignity and diversity of their cultures, traditions, histories, and aspirations, which shall be appropriately reflected in education and public information. So guess what? By us having a Rise of the Moors University, every other high school and university and elementary school around the surrounding area, well, in the so-called state, has to correct their curriculum to reflect what we're teaching about ourselves. Any questions on that?
That's great, because we live right across the street from a high school
Mhm.
and down the street from a middle school. Since I found out, I've been wanting to just tell these kids, it would just be
Yeah.
in front of my house.
Yeah.
The American flag and Continental flag
Mhm.
and the Star Spangled Banner, and have a sign explain to them, this is the American flag.
Yeah.
This is the Star Spangled,
Yeah. But it has to start by us teaching our children,
Our children, yes.
and then it'll spread like wildfire. So this is section 1. The purpose is to carry out the ministry given to us by Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Rise of the Moors is exercising their sui juris right and duty. So it's our obligation. It's not just, oh, this is a good idea. It's our obligation. So it's our duty to erect and promote educational facilities dedicated to philosophy. Right? Now, just a simple lesson. Pretty sure I spelled that wrong.
Let me see.
We get it.
I spelled it right. Yeah, I spelled it right. What does osophy mean?
The study of something?
Or the study of? What does phil mean?
I'm not sure. Oh.
Huh?
I just said to myself, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, love of study, or love to study. That's what philosophy means. So when you get your PhD, that just means you love to study. And the word doctor means teacher. So every person with their doctorate means they're a teacher. Because if you're a master, then you can teach what you know. Get it? It's very simple, right? This university shall foster and teach sacred doctrines such as language studies, which includes etymology, which we have some Moors in here that speak English and Spanish. So if you speak another language, French, whatever, doesn't matter, and you would like to teach it, let us know. Right? Astrology, political science, jurisprudence, history, which is, philosophy, medicine, including agriculture, surgery, and anatomy, martial arts, which is going to be required for every student, doesn't matter what your age is, some type of form of martial arts. Business and economics, which is commerce and mathematics, so they're going to be connected. Right? The reason why you should learn math is because of business and commerce, which will go. Pay attention to when I say commerce is the lifeblood of the nation in the speech, right? Mechanics and engineering, these are all aspirations. We don't have these teachers yet. This is the plea. I was hoping more teachers would come. I'm not saying any of you aren't teachers. I'm saying I was expecting a lot more teachers. We good?
Yep.
Great. Religious studies and some electives, art, music, and dance, and the sciences connected therewith. And we shall have the right to confer academic degrees by the authority of the then established council. Right, so the board of directors of the university. The Moorish universities erected can confer ecclesiastical, historical, jurisprudence, health, and science academic degrees and others. So instead of going to European whatever I got my degree at Harvard, I in Brown University, you can start saying I got my degree at Rise of the Moors University of higher science. Right? Salute.
Thank you.
Section 2, the academic degrees conferred by the universities are associate, scholastic, and doctor of philosophy, which I put neophyte, scholar, and revealer of light. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's the same thing, right? Section 2, the purpose of the Moorish universities are 1, through scientific research to cultivate and promote our own disciplines, those directly or indirectly connected with Islam or which directly serve the mission of the Moorish divine and national movement, and therefore, especially to deepen knowledge of peace and of matters connected with it, which deals with political science, which is why nations have governments, to foster peace amongst other nations. Right? 2, enunciate and instruct systematically the truths contained therein, to consider in the light of revelation the most recent progresses of the sciences, jurisprudence, and health, and to present them to the people in the present day in a manner adopted to various cultures, designed to reach them where they are. Simple, right? Number 2, to instruct and educate the students to a level of high qualification in their own disciplines, according to the Islamic creed, to prepare them properly to face their tasks and to promote the continuing permanent education of the ministries of the Moorish Divine and National Movement and guiders of the nation. Subsection 3, university personnel are to study, research, and form which operates on an official level in pursuit of the primary aims of the Moorish Divine and National Movement. This is where you hear Brother Moreno Bay say, when a student invents something at Harvard, they don't say the student does it, they say Harvard did it. Right? So it's our job to do research to help the upliftment of our people. Which, as an example, since I don't work for any Europeans, I work for myself, and there are other Moors who don't necessarily have the same time as me to do the amount of research I can do, it's my duty to do that research, right? And then give it to the people, because they can't do it themselves because of what Rome is doing to them. So that would also be the responsibility of the university. Get it? Very simple, right? Any questions so far? Are we comprehending how important this is?
Yeah,
Great. Section 3, the academic community and its government. Clause 1, within the academic community, all the people, either as individuals or as members of councils, committees, clubs, clans, or guilds, etc., are each, according to his or her own status, co-responsible for the common good and must strive to work for the same community's goals to help, wherever possible, in the securest maintenance of said university. Clause 2, therefore, the rights and duties within the academic community must be articulately set down in the status thereof to ensure that they are properly exercised within correctly established limits and focus on the welfare of our nation, specifically the welfare of our women and children. Any questions? Section 4, the academic community and its government. Hold on, let me see. Oh, I repeated myself. Typo. Article 5, the Dean/Headmaster. Section 1, the administrative officer in charge of the faculty and students shall be known as the Dean or Headmaster. Section 2, the Headmaster shall be responsible for ensuring each discipline is taught with the highest of quality, reviewing the syllabus, class material, and responsible for the regular monitoring of the day-to-day functions of the university. Right, so keep in mind, because we're going to have an election to establish these people. Right? Number 2, the Headmaster, I just read that. Number 3, the Dean shall also be the financial disciplinarian subject to the board for all students and faculty members. Teachers, Section 1. In each faculty, there must be a number of teachers, especially permanent ones, which corresponds to the importance and development of the individual disciplines. So they would be the department heads, right? And that department head will be in charge of all the teachers of that department, right? As well as to the proper care and development of the students. Now, this is with having in mind that we're going to have a university with campuses, so the students and the teachers will live in close vicinity to each other to ensure that those students have a parental figure nearby. You know, because a lot of our people have no parents, right? So if they come to university, we'll be the parents' portrait, but in a positive aspect, right? Excuse me. Section 3. The statutes are to define which authorities are responsible for hiring, naming, and promoting teachers, especially when it is in question of giving them a permanent position. Subsection 1. To be legitimately hired as a permanent teacher in a faculty, a person must A, be distinguished by a wealth of knowledge, witness of words, works, and deeds, and ecclesiastic life, and a sense of responsibility. So no people just saying, oh yeah, I did A, B, C, D, and E, you're going to have to show me proof, because that's how I operate, right? B, show documentary proof of sustainability for doing scientific research, especially by a published dissertation. Because I'm telling you right now, I'm telling this you to your face. When I was part of the Moorish American Consulate, I was the only one on the Supreme Judicial Council who had written any books on Moorish science. That's a problem. So to be part of this university, that is a requirement. So if you're interested, you might want to start writing if you didn't write anything. You tracking? So there should be no questions on how come I can't be. Where's your book? So I can read it to determine if you're qualified to be a teacher or not. Right? C, they demonstrate teaching ability. D, all teachers of every rank must be marked by an upright life, integrity of doctrine, and devotion to duty so that they can effectively contribute to the proper goals of the ecclesiastically commissioned Moorish academic institution. Should any of these requirements subsequently cease to be, the teachers must be removed from their post immediately, observing the established procedure of due process of law and with cause. So again, these are just general rules. The board of directors will make more specific rules that are governed by this, which is why it's so important for us to actually have Moorish participation in this university. No self-appointed nothing, right? E, those who teach matters regarding faith and morals are to be conscious of their duty to carry out their work in full connection with the Quran of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science and the words, works, and deeds of all the prophets, particularly focused on His Holiness, Al-Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali. Students, Section 1. Students must faithfully observe the laws of the faculty about the general programs and about discipline. In the first place, about the plan of students, class attendance, and examinations. For this reason, the university and the individual faculties must make it known to the students of all its statutes and rules. Section 2. The statute should define how the students, either individually or collectively, take part in the academic community life and ministerial duties, i.e. apprenticeship, and those aspects in which they can contribute to the common good of the university. So as an example, if we have a teacher on, agriculture, they can be students who are that person's apprentice, so when they graduate, they already know, not only do they have the academic information, but they have the actual practical application of how to put seeds in the ground, when to harvest them, etc. So when they graduate, we can send them out to the world actually prepared. Not like what they're doing to us in their schools. They just, here you go, take that and leave. Right? Same thing with us Moors who are skilled in jurisprudence. When it comes time to these students, and we got to go to court, guess who's coming with us? Them. Right? On-the-job training. The statute should equally determine how the student can, for serious reasons, be suspended from certain rights or be deprived of them or even be expelled from the university in such a way that the rights of the student are appropriately protected. Conduct, Section 1. No fraternization between students and faculty. So you ain't boys going out drinking. Right? So if you got a class of 10 students, you better not be at the bar with one of those students. They better not be at your house either. Chilling.
Called a conflict of interest. You cannot do that.
Section 2. There's a zero tolerance policy on stealing. Which, if the board agrees, if you get caught stolen, you get flogged. That's an example. That's just up to the board. That's not up to me. It's up to the board. Number 3. The dormitories shall be divided by majors and gender. We don't want no students getting pregnant while at the university. Right. So all the jurisprudence people will be in the jurisprudence house so that they can study amongst each other and master, develop their minds together. All the agricultural people in the agricultural house, where they talk about farming practices and the almanacs and the moon and the cycles and all that good stuff. All the astrology people will be in the cosmological house where they look at the stars all day and they're like, oh, look at this. Look at that stuff over there. All the cooks will be in the culinary house They're chefing it up, putting their wrist on the mission.
Cooking for the rest of everybody else.
Cooking up that dope in a crock pot.
Wow.
What? Arroz con pollo? Tres leche? What?
Sounds good.
You're in trouble. He's in trouble.
Yeah, right.
Number 4.
It's up to the board.
The dress code for faculty and students shall be A, from Monday to Thursday, business casual. Men and women have the option of wearing either a turban or a fez. 2, Fridays. The dress code shall be entirely Moorish garb, i.e. kurtas and saris with turbans and fezzes or any other Moorish headdress. If martial arts is your major, in lieu of Moorish garb, you will wear your dress blue alpha uniform with a turban wrapped fez, irrespective of gender. So we're actually having, our people are going to be actually upright, independent, and fearless. Right? Yes.
Yes, because of your background, and I was thinking, because the Constitution says we have a right to our own militia.
Mhm.
And I remember when I was in school, I didn't attend, but I wanted to attend, hindsight's 22, but they had like paramilitary, or what it was called,
Yeah.
ROTC
Yes.
training.
That's mandatory for everyone.
Yes, but
It's mandatory for everyone, but there's going to be certain people who that's going to be their major.
right.
They're going to major in military studies.
Exactly.
So while everyone else is wearing regular clothes on Friday,
Mhm.
they're going to be wearing their uniform, so that we can distinguish. Oh, you're going to be our military guys,
Yeah,
and that way we're already building these close relationships with these people.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when they get in office, if they get in office, because this doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be in office.
Mhm.
This just means you're trained to do this. So when you go out in the world,
Mhm.
you can train other people, and then we can actually get a Moorish military over time.
Over time, yeah.
And this applies to every single,
Mhm.
scholastic, whatever I call
Yeah.
it, degree. Right? Clause 3, weekends. The dress code shall be casual, with the exception that all faculty and students conducting any formal operations or activities of the university. So you're going to wear your regular, schmegular university stuff if you're doing any official duties, like, you got in trouble for stealing, so now you're on probation, so now you got to wear your suit every day. Or, you got to go to court with some of the head jurisprudence department person, so now you got to wear whatever that person says. Very simple. Men shall ensure that if they have facial hair, it is kept to a cleanly manner, meaning trimmed or groomed from the mouth. So you know how hair be all up in your mouth when you're trying to eat, and you got all ketchup and mayonnaise on you. You got the crumbs in your mustache. Nobody wants that. No one wants to see that. So just keep it off your mouth. That's it. Boom. Trim, and you're done. Right? I'm not a woman, so I can't really, when the women come together, you'll say women can't do A, B, C, D, and E, right? And that's it. So far. This is the skeleton of the university. I'm not expecting every single one of you in this room to be involved in the university, but just so you know, it exists. So if you hear any Moors talking about, the Moors need a school. Oh, I went to this convention one time, and the Moors weren't just plain holy moly macaroni, they were talking about a university. Right. So yeah, that's that. Any questions on this?
Can I take a look at that?
Yeah. Break it, you buy it.
Will you be adding things as you go along to the curriculum?
Yes, as this develops, yeah. Hold on, let me sip some of this water, please. There's a bunch of chairs in here.
Yeah, you can come in.
He can come. And if he starts crying, you can take him out. So yes,
Yeah, she
as more and more get involved, whether it be the teachers or the students, or just more privately investing, then things will develop. We'll have more curriculums, more everything, more rules. The rules might change. Things like that. So again, some of the scholastic departments are language studies, astrology, political science, history, medicine, martial arts, which is required for everyone, business and economics, mechanics and engineering, religious studies, and some of the electives are arts, music, and dance. Right. Again, here's some of the university budget that I went over.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is alchemy gonna be one of the classes?
Sure. Why not? Yes.
Nutrition.
Yeah, that's gonna be part of agriculture or medicine.
Like carpentry?
Actually, under medicine, listed next to it is agriculture, surgery, and anatomy. So the
That's
farmers are
added
going to be
nutrition.
working. That's under medicine.
Mhm.
So they're going to be working with the people that know the anatomy of the body and things like that. Because to me that makes sense. If you ask me.
Yeah, the people who know about the food talk to the people who know about the body. They can help heal people that way.
Recreate some of our ancestors' medicine.
Yeah.
Yes.
So with the university budget, again, I started with the larger your home is, the more you can expect to pay for remodeling, etc. For an example, remodeling a whole house that's fewer than 1,000 square feet costs an average of 18,000, while a 3,000 or 4,000 square foot home costs around 36,000. So I put approximately $25,000 to $504,000 to fix up the properties that we're looking at. Then the average cost of living in Rhode Island, so to pay the teachers, so if we have 9 classes, so we have 9 teachers for the head of the departments just starting off, or just 9 teachers who could teach multiple subjects, right? With a median home price of $157,300, which is significantly lower than the nationwide median price of $200,700. According to Rhode Island Demographics and Statistics, the average cost of a home in Rhode Island is $265,000, with the average household income is $73,000 annually. Right. So if we pay, let's say $50,000 to the teacher annually, and we're housing them, that sounds like a deal to me. You get $50,000 a year to teach more science. You're living on campus. That's your permanent job. You can retire. That sounds like a deal to me. Right? Then I put the average cost of living for students, for college students, which we really gotta go over, because we're gonna be providing the housing for them, and we're gonna be growing the food for the community. So it's kind of like. Then the average pay for a gate guard, which is about $23,000 a year, which all that is factored into this price. So all we have to do with the dean and the president of the university, as well as the board of directors, is we would just have to sit down and decide how much everyone's going to get paid to do their job within this budget, and or add more a year, depending on the participation of the students. Yes.
So the people who are going to be working for the university, such as the gate guard, who's going to get paid the $23,000 a year, would the gate
Ish.
guard? Yeah, would the gate guard be provided room and board? Like,
Yeah.
so he would be living for free, and also he or she would be living for free and still collecting a yearly income.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which this is nothing. 1,000. My video. I got 9,000 subscribers on YouTube right now. So if we need 1,000 students, well, right there. That's optimistically.
Again, $850 a year is nothing, because again, for a community college, you pay at least $1,200 per semester. Never mind your books.
Yeah.
Per semester. A semester is like 3 months. So you do 2 semesters in a year. That's like $2,500 to $3,000, and then your books are another $2,000 to $4,000 on top of it. For a regular community
I was
college.
trying to point out the area that I'm in, daycare, you pay $2,000 a month.
Yeah,
So it's not like our people can't afford this.
right. Because $2.50 a day is really nothing.
Drop that Starbucks.
Right.
If you're a teacher getting paid $50,000 a year, that's
And you're getting a free
goals.
somewhere
That's
to,
what
and you're getting somewhere to live for free. So that's even more of an incentive to want to have that job. I know I would want to have
Yes.
that job.
So what
Peace.
are some of the avenues
Peace.
that we can come together to learn so that we can generate and come up with that revenue?
Well, as an example, we know a bunch of rappers.
Oh, it is?
Start reaching out. That's what our people are known for: rapping and basketball
Yeah.
and football.
Yeah, it is a couple of people that's in the rap game that declared their nationality.
Granddaddy Flash follows us.
There's a lot of movies.
Yep.
There's a lot of.
Dougie
You mean
Fresh is-
Granddaddy IU?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I just mixed up his name. I'm sorry.
Butchered it.
For real, Flash was the DJ. My bad. Which one? Reza?
Jizza.
Which one you said?
Inspector Deck.
Ghostface did put Noble Drew Ali on blast on Triumph.
Yeah. Remember I told you Ghostface always talks about Islam?
Most deaf.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nas
Nick
last
Cannon,
album was-
Nas.
Yeah, they can.
That includes Kanye, because he
the
produced
bas-
it.
What's the basketball player?
What about Nick Cannon? I always see him wearing
He's a Yamasi.
He's a more.
I don't know.
Yeah.
They
But anyway, we can, if you as an individual start reaching out, you know,
network, tell a friend, tell a friend.
yeah, why not?
Dougie Fresh.
Dougie Fresh's father.
Is
He's a
the-
Moor.
Yeah.
Pictures with Dougie Fresh,
In
him
New
with the
Je-
black
in New
fez on,
Jersey.
regular fez on. It's all these people don't know. What's that? How Can I Breathe guy with the big nose,
Ray Allen.
big nostrils? What's his name?
He's talking about
Mario. Mario posted on his Instagram.
He said, how can I breathe?
He posted his uncle or whatever
Yeah, he
passed
did.
away.
Yeah.
Had the fez, the adap chamber,
The aunt
Sash.
had the turban on and everything.
crescent moon right on the thing. Our problem is we're not holding none of our so-called leaders accountable. We're just like, oh,
Right, that's it.
and we'll support someone like, never mind. Dr. Umar Johnson, who raised all this money and don't have a university yet.
Yeah. They took all the bread though. Nobody's business.
And he's still somehow.
And you know what's
All of them
interesting?
He's still
Chasing
somehow
You know what's
relevant.
interesting? I heard through the grapevine that he got the school behind the House of Ram. There's 2 abandoned schools behind the House of Ram.
What?
The House of Reawakening Minds, excuse me. 602 Vandever Ave, Wilmington, Delaware.
We got
19802.
I heard Dr. G mentioning that the property's back behind there, she was trying to get one.
That's what I heard. So, to get funding, all we have to do is start forcing our people to participate. Boycott all the black events until they start giving fiat back to their
Been doing
community.
that.
Huh?
I've been doing
Yeah, me too.
Just need more people to do it.
Yeah, because it be like when I walk around with my fez on, a lot of people do stop and question, you know, and because they're curious.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you know, lead them to the rise. You can donate, you know, whether they declare their nationality or not. You know, anyone's donation is, you know, can contribute.
Also, every municipality gets federal funding. It's called the HUD program, Housing and Urban Development. Right. If Moors were actually serious, like this BS Philadelphia Moorish Week, we're gonna do a speech on the side of the street, and we're gonna do a speech at City Hall and not talk about getting funding. Instead of going there and not talking about getting funding, how about we go to City Hall and start talking about getting funding?
Instead of talking about, let's push that.
That's what I was thinking.
Which, oh yeah, you were there that day when we spoke to City Councilwoman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's why we keep saying, yo, Moors move out here, so when we go to City Hall, there's a bunch of us and they can't say no.
Yeah.
Because if all of us are like, yeah, let's go, yeah, and then 2 people say, oh, I can make it today, then
That's what inspired us to just come.
I'm staying home. Because I'm not about to go out there looking like an idiot. Talking about I represent an organization and there's 2 people there. What organization are you talking about? Right. So, with no further ado, my 12-page speech. I'm going to skip a lot, just so you know. But this is going to be published somewhere on the line.
On the line.
Yeah.
Great job.
The websites.
The internet.
Yeah. We, the members of the Rise of the Moors, a non-profit civic organization, thought proper to honor our foremothers and forefathers, as instructed by El-Haj Sharif Abdul Ali, and establish a Shujuris University here in the organic, Aboriginal, and Indigenous Moorish Narragansett territory. The Moorish Narragansett Confederacy's original jurisdiction expanded across several territories, starting at 41 degrees north, 73 degrees west, present-day Long Island, New York / New Amsterdam, extending eastwardly to the eastern seaboard of Morocco, North America, inclusive of present-day Plymouth, Massachusetts, 41 degrees north, 69 degrees west, including Connecticut, present-day state of Connecticut, northernly towards the Merrimack River in present-day New Hampshire, 43 degrees north, 71 degrees west, including present-day municipal city of Lowell, Massachusetts, Nashua, Manchester, Concord, and the municipal town of Tilton, New Hampshire, to which the seat of the Narragansett Confederacy was established at Mount Hope Bay, B-E-Y, that's how they spell it. Mount Hope Bay, it's still spelled like that right now, as you exist, which is the present-day municipal town of Bristol, Bristol County, Rhode Island. Bristol falls within the original Showman Moorish jurisdiction, branded Showman Indians. Right, so they take our municipalities, call them tribes, mess it all up, and we think it's not dealing with government. No, it's a municipality, and it's not one tribe running that whole area. It's a bunch of families, a bunch of tribes coming together, forming a municipality and running government. But they don't want you to know that. They just think a tribe and get your tribal ID and get some BS fake illusion freedom. I'm gonna skip this, skip that. Our tight-knit infrastructure, organization, and administration of government established by our clan mothers, sheiks, and other matriarchal pillars was so sepaternal, meaning they don't end, that Europeans today still use our women to organize and administrate their colonial government. So go to City Hall and see yourself. Excuse me. Where was I? Yet too often our Asiatic, Moorish, African women are qualified or more qualified than their immediate supervisor for their administrative and other positions while receiving less pay. This treatment is often misidentified as racism, yet it is in fact the continued operations of the Spanish Inquisition, initiated by King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella against us, the Moors, which inevitably evolved into the democracy. So this is why we're doing this university. This feigned act of racism is in fact genocide, and this half-hearted form of genocide, or we often receive a lower form of compensation for services that we provide, resulting in a lower quality of life, whereby we are commanded to release more energy outwork or output, meaning work and labor, and receive less compensation. So we work harder for less. One of our goals is to bring our women back over to our free national government and contract their expertise for the upliftment of all African, Asiatic, Moorish people. The Europeans have also molded their entire union of colonies after our Iroquois Law of the Great Peace and its Republican form of government. See the House Concurrent Resolution 331 of the 100th Congress, second session of October 21st, Legislative Day, October 18th, 1988, whereby the Europeans admit that their ministers plenipotentiary, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, etc., formed their colonial union based on Moorish law. There are many people within the Narragansett territory who have never left whatever municipal city that they currently inhabit, and this applies to every state. There's a bunch of Moors who think that they're black who never even left their block. I'm serious. Most, if not all, of these Moors, branded blacks, Spanish, Negroes, Indians, Puerto Ricans, etc., belong to the Aboriginal families and confederacies. Some of the confederations that exist prior to Providence, Bristol, Pawtucket, and Warwick are Nipmuc, Natick, Pequot, Pokanoket, Wampanoag, etc. There's a bunch of them. In alliance with the enforcement of religion and direct relationship to the weekly conversion schools forced on Moors, Muslims in Europe during the Christian Inquisition and Crusades, the Christian Black Codes were created in 1724. Precedent to these codes, in 1712, the Willie Lynch Manual, or letter, was created to deal with rebellious Moors during the colonization of North, South, and Central America. This manual includes to brainwash the Moorish tribes to divide us in the mind. The Europeans decided to call some of us black, some of us Indian, some of us Spanish, and some of us Negro. European high priest, or master masons / Klansmen, then established various convoluted portions of our own history, directed and designed towards each specific group to cause confusion and prevent unity amongst the different groups. So now the so-called Indians get their Indian version of history. The so-called Spanish people get their own version of history, and the so-called blacks get their own version of history. Right? To keep us confused. So-called Indians are to be taught that many of their ancestors were killed off to make up for the false history that millions of blacks were brought to this country. So that even though we see each other, so-called blacks and so-called Indians, we have a false idea that we're a separate people, when in fact, if you combine the number of so-called blacks and so-called Indians, it is clear that we outnumber the Europeans, as the millions of us that they have claimed to massacre is a lie. Now, you not believe nothing that I'm saying.
Do your own due
Do you
diligence.
do research?
Yeah.
The so-called Indians that disappeared, who are so-called massacred, are the same people who think that they are black today. Both so-called Indians and so-called blacks are of ancient Moabite, Canaanite, Phoenician blood, the founders of civilization. The founders of the ancient kingdoms of Urk, Murray, Morocco, Tunis, and Tripoli. The founders of the Mauryan dynasty in Hindustan, and the administrators of the silk trade into and out of China. The founders of the empire of Amexem, the Olmecs and Aztecs, and the administrators of Mu, Atlantis, and the founders of the Holy Roman Empire. The manual teaches to divide the young against the old, the weak against the strong, the dark skin against the fair skin, the tall against the short, the smart against the dumb, and to beat the men in front of the women and children, convince the men to dishonor their women, teach the children to be disobedient to their parents, but obedient to their masters, etc. This type of cause and effect is in fact the very reason why today European Inquisitionists, Moriscos, and Conversos often show our people being beaten and killed by police on TV and various social media outlets, to include the various hangings in relationship to Black History Month promoted by black leaders, all of which are promoted and displayed to cause fear in the hearts and minds of our men, women, and children, to keep us in the state of so-called mental slavery. The Black Codes had only been created less than 20 years prior to the Great Awakening. Molding the minds of children stood as an easy task for the colonizers. This genocidal act of separating the children from the parents, and a malicious Parents Patre Act to gain control over the minds of the children by forcing the parents onto reservations and plantations, which are now what the modern day jobs, hoods, and ghettos are. These institutions are intended to keep the parents busy, thus occupationally abandoning the children to be raised by the colonial state-funded schools and other 501c3 or other chartered, special, and private schools or religious organizations. These same tactics were and are used against both blacks and Indians alike, to include so-called Spanish people, as we are the same people divided in the mind only. This is often why the state makes attending their school mandatory, and if you decide to homeschool your children, the state will get involved and say you need to teach them this. To help deal with this issue, the United Nations has made declarations on the rights of a child and on human rights, which clearly states that the parents have the first initial say on the education of their children, and states cannot force parents to send their children to their indoctrination camps. It is unethical to send our children to be taught by those who oppress us, for the way we teach our children to be regulated by the same oppressor. Just as El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, which some of you may know him as Malcolm X, said, the press is so powerful in its image-making role, it can make the criminal look like he's the victim and make the victim look like he's the criminal. This is the press, an irresponsible press. If you aren't careful, the newspaper will have you hating the people who are being oppressed and loving the people who are doing the oppressing. Which you'll often hear our people complain about the educational system, but then we'll keep sending our people to their schools. And then we'll keep complaining and then keep sending them. Right? If we aren't careful and establish our own schools to teach our own children, the results that we see today will be the same. Our people still don't know who they are, and Europeans are still in supreme administrative control over our lands, labor via taxes, homes via rent, mortgages, Section 8, housing, and sharecropping. Considering our vast culture, I'm going to skip that. Let's get right here. Oh, I'll just be there. All right. Considering our vast cultures, subcultures, traditions, garbs, and customs, whilst considering the fact that one group or organizational drill society may not always see eye to eye on everything, we must all unite under one name and that not only unites us by giving us the commanding power and rights to belong to our land. We must declare our nationality. Although many of us have lost connection and have been torn from the cultures due to European colonization of North, South, and Central America, we, the Aboriginal people of the planet, have the right to self-determination and realignment, which is religion, with our ancestors. This university is our means to mend what has been broken and to continue the great works of El-Hajj Sharif Abdullah Ali to bring our people back into the constitutional fold of government and administrating our own allodial national government as opposed to being under a warship status under a foreign federal government. Now what I'm about to read to you is the Prophet makes a plea to the nations. Our divine and national movement stands for the specific grand principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I, the Prophet, am applying to all loyal, faithful Moors, members, and American citizens to help me in my great uplifting acts of uplifting fallen humanity among the Asiatic race and nation, for I have suffered much and severely in the past through misunderstanding of what the movement was dedicated to. In this great work, it is the great God Allah alone that guides the destiny of the divine and Moorish movement. The divine and national movement. I know all true American citizens are identified by national descent names to answer and apply to the free national constitution of this free national republic of the United States of America. That's why I'm calling upon all true national citizens, all the dirty Moors, one more time, national citizens, that's what your prophet said, to help me morally and financially in my great work I'm doing to help this national government. For without a free national name, without the descent flag of your forefathers, there is not a national divine title of the government in which we live. This is from your true and divine prophet unto all American and foreign sympathizers, Prophet Noble Ali. Nationality is your bloodline. It is that common spiritual thread that connects us. To be removed from our nationalities, to be stripped of our history, land, culture, laws, customs, traditions, and morals. The word tribe is synonymous with family. The many tribes unified is what collectively comprises the nation. The family name is not the same name as the nation itself. The tribal name is more of a unique family traditional name to identify different families with similar yet distinct cultural traditions, ceremonies, mannerisms, appearance, or even geographical land occupation. Cultural traditions, within the natural borders of the nation. A family may be distinguished from other tribes by what surrounds them, such as rivers, lakes, mountains, etc. A tribe to the left of a vast river may distinguish itself from the family to the right of the river, closer to the mountains, but still unified, sharing the same culture, language, traditions, trade, gold, food, etc. They collectively comprise the nation, not the individual tribes themselves. Just as our people have been taught the terms or phrases black people, or Spanish people, or Hispanic people, Native American Indians, West Indians, or simply Indian is what united us by blood, it is not. Our proper national identity is Moorish or Al-Moroccan, the unabridged form of American. Considering there are no de jure Moors who have established a government/temple/regency within this territory, and if they have, show me. We deem it necessary to establish a university to ensure that the future generations will have competent consuls, representatives, grand sheikhs, muftis, a treasurer, and other governmental officers within this territory of Morocco and Narragansett, to include ambassadors, military generals, and the like, to enforce the American Constitution, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, as well as, in time, after the conclusion of a free Moorish National Constitutional Convention, the free national constitution established, written by and for Moorish Americans, as well as to reclaim jurisdiction over our own affairs, land, labors, bodies, hereditaments, and estates. The rise of the Moorish universities being established for the following causes. 1. Whereas every time a European speaks to us in any controversies in the court of law, the issue of diversity is primal, as we're not citizens of the United States, as it is our ancestor and Sultan, Sidi Muhammad, or Muhammad ibn Abdullah, who allowed the European colonies to stay here in Morocco, North America, and as Moors, we can never be part of a foreign government on our own homeland. Whereas the history of current colonial occupiers of the official seats of the Moorish imperial divan is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having the direct objective of establishing an absolute mobocracy over Morocco, using weapons so subtle and sophisticated in its principle of operation and public appearance, they have been dubbed silent weapons. These silent weapons have been perpetrated against the Moors of North America with the total objective of shifting the administration of the natural wealth, resources, and energies of the rightful heirs to the planet. This silent weapon, having been gradually applied to the public, is a type of biological and mental warfare, continuously being used by Europeans and Moorish conversos and Moriscos alike. This weapon has encroached on the lives of the people to a point that it causes unmistakable physical and mental injuries amongst the Moors. These injuries are a direct result of psychological damage through the feudal controls of economics, the mobility of the people, the quality of education given to the people, and a direct attack on the spirit of the people. Whereas this economic pressure can and will be relieved off the backs of the Moors and other American citizens through the application, practice, implementation, and study of jurisprudence, the exercise of our right to adverse possession, adverse claim, right of reversion, and most importantly, the education of our people, tolerance, time, and forgiveness. Whereas this economic pressure has been regulated by the Federal Reserve note, to which all debt obligations belong to the private owners of the Federal Reserve Bank, in harmony with the Constitution, whereby only Congress may coin money, said at Article 1, Section 8, and only gold and silver coin may be used to pay off debt, said at Article 1, Section 10, it becomes clear to any reasoning mind that the same private bankers who have taken the gold and silver from the people have, by doing so, become beneficiaries and are responsible to discharge all alleged debts of the people, to include but not limited to mortgages, credit card debts, electricity bills, rent, car loans, and others. Whereas it is the right of all Aboriginal and Indigenous people to be the beneficiaries to all of the natural resources on and of their own homeland. Whereas European colonial occupiers have obstructed the administration of justice by continually practicing color of law against the people, by enforcing private corporate policy against the people. Whereas European colonial occupiers have erected a multitude of agencies and continuously send gangs of private mercenaries guised as officers of the law to harass our people and fill their prisons to benefit their prison industrial complex and peonage practices on an ignorant people for free labor. Don't look at me. Look at who funds, as an example, Whole Foods.
Monsanto.
Where did they get their labor from?
Jail.
Where's an industrial complex? Whereas European colonial occupiers have established night orders specifically designated to perpetrate their acts of genocide and terrorism, such as the members of the Bar Association, private mercenaries guised as city, state, county police, and others. These agencies are purposely established to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our own constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving them assent to their acts of pretend legislation, color of law, color of office, and color of authority, for establishing large bodies of armed troops amongst us, for protecting them as they practice color of law and punish our people for victimless crimes. Any more has been in court, you'll see just that. Mm-hmm. For using said agencies to kill members of our nation and groups to cause fear and mental anguish. Look at the police killing our people, always on the news, Facebook. Whereas it is common for European colonial occupiers to issue unlawful warrants against us, the Moors, knowing they lack the lawful authority to do so, and knowing that they have a superior number of armed mercenaries and highwaymen patrolling our streets doing business as Providence Police, the Rhode Island State Police, and others. It is also our fault, pay attention, it is also our fault for not establishing our own judicial bodies to bring our own people to justice, enforce law amongst our own people, and live the life that all other nations live. Whereas despite international community expressing the declarations on the rights of the child, European colonial occupiers have been claiming ownership of our children through the birth certificate. Whereas to achieve administrative control over us and our children as an artificial parent's portrait, our families have been disintegrated by processes of increasing preoccupation of parents, then establishing de facto colonial government-operated daycare and other schools for our children, leading to a perpetual cycle of miseducation of our own records of time, meaning history. Now, this is from Executive Order 11490 of October 1969, known as the King Alfred Plan, also known as Readiness Exercise 84, or Rex 84, aka Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. In order to achieve a totally predictable economy, the low-class elements of society must be brought under total control, meaning they must be housebroken, trained, and assigned a yoke and long-term social duties from a very early age before they have the opportunity to question the propriety of the matter. In order to achieve such conformity, the lower-class family unit must be disintegrated by a process of increasing preoccupation of the parents in the establishment of government-operated daycare centers for the occupationally orphaned children. The quality of education given to the lower class must be of the poorest sort, so that the meat of ignorance, isolating the inferior class from the superior class, is and remains incomprehensible to the inferior class. With such an initial handicap, even bright lower class individuals have little, if any, hope of extracting themselves from their assigned lot in life. This form of slavery is essential to maintaining some measure of social order, peace, and tranquility for the ruling upper class. The public might instinctively feel that something is wrong, but because of the technical nature of the silent weapon, they cannot express their feelings in a rational way or handle the problems with intelligence. Therefore, they do not know how to cry for help, and they do not know how to associate with others to defend themselves against it. We must promote communication between the Moors and the official agents of Rhode Island and its Republican form of government, as well as to, in the future, develop programs pursuant to the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People to promote the state of Rhode Island's obligations and support for increasing economic security amongst indigenous people, working closely with our elected and appointed representatives to promote the state of Rhode Island's involvement in the alleviation of the worst physical manifestations of poverty, promotions of conditions of establishing the achievement of self-sustainability and economic growth, as well as acquiring the knowledge and resources essential to the development of our economic, political, and social institutions, which will improve the quality of life for American nationals and citizens alike. The increase of indigenous people having allodial titles to the property and the increase of agricultural activity, productivity, and apprenticeship, increasing the rate of literacy by promoting lessons on etymology, morphology, phonology, and transliteration. We must continue to promote governmental structure within our Joe society to teach our people those things necessary to become better citizens. We must continue to develop and support the facilitate the revitalization and establishment of Moorish business. Which will in turn assist in our upliftment acts as we take our place amongst the affairs of men. The above aims can be expressed as reparations. In addition, it is the official and present philosophy of all modern schools and universities in America, where the majority of the population consists of denationalized Moorish Americans. And I quote from Frederick T. Gates, the advisor to John D. Rockefeller. This is their philosophy. In our dreams, we have limitless resources, and the people yield themselves to perfect docility to our molding hands. The present education conventions fade from their minds, and unhampered by tradition, will work our own goodwill on a grateful and responsive rural folk. We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning or men of science. We have not to raise up from among them authors, editors, poets, or men of letters. We shall not try to search for embryo great artists, painters, musicians, nor lawyers, doctors, preachers, politicians, statements of whom we have ample supply. So now if you don't believe me, go to Brown University. You'll see the cross and shield of the Knights Templar. Go across the street and you'll see John D. Rockefeller Library.
That's their philosophy, and they're the ones who control the general education board for the schools, public schooling.
A university can be described as a municipality or a city. Its dean is its mayor, its board of directors is its council, and its students its constituents. Like a city, a university's number one priority is its constituents or students. The final objective of the Rising of Moors University is to teach our students all that is necessary to make them into better citizens of the Moorish nation. This includes, amongst other things, instructions on commerce and taxes. Taxes, although voluntary, like your admittance into the university, is key to any society. The participation of the various corporations of a city paying taxes is as vital to the city's self-sustainability as its tuition fees for a university. Taxes are considered a civic duty, just as tuition is your student duty. The only difference is that the student pays out of pocket for the tuition and the corporation pays taxes from its gross income. Knowing this distinction is vital to the success of the commercial businesses or commercial business ventures of all Moorish Americans and will encourage them to work together in continuing the success of our community. The university is and will be our stepping stone for our own Moorish town or city with a functioning government. My goal as the founder of the university is to have students find work immediately after graduation. Right now, in our current affairs, there is no sovereign, self-sufficient, and self-sustaining Moorish government. If there is one, show me. This is so because there is no self-sufficient and self-sustaining Moorish business paying taxes to pay the officials of the Moorish government to protect the people. This problem can be solved with the university. The gathering of Moorish people will in fact establish a functioning Moorish Jewish society ipso jure. The very nature of society is to be self-sustaining, and different people from all walks of life of our society coming together for a common goal will subsequently intensify the demand for national sovereignty. There's a long list of what needs to happen in order for our nation to succeed. The top 3 priorities that all Moors can agree on is 1, commerce, 2, government, and 3, a military. Fortunately enough, all businessmen and women, government officials, and military personnel have been and are required to attend some form of schooling. So if you want 1, 2, or 3, you have to start with school. Education is the foundation of any functioning society. And if any Moor is honestly interested in a free national government, they will see why we need a university. This will not be an easy task, and we all have much to learn, but many Moors have the sight of salvation in their heart and in their mind. That vision is of the future, and it is all of our responsibility, at least those who see the vision, to establish the necessary support system to propel our prosperity and future generations into vast and never-ending prosperity. The same prosperity, sovereignty, freedom, peace, and happiness we see in our vision and dreams is what we need to help the future generations manifest. When it is our time to return to this plane of existence, we should hope to have left a mark on the souls after us to carry us to the finish line. We need Moors who are dedicated to the task at hand. This task is to prepare the next generations to take the Moorish movement to heights that we never have dreamed of, by fostering unity, cooperation, togetherness, and working through our differences in a healthy manner. This can only be established by being the example. No task is more important than the other as it relates to our upliftment. But as stated by Prophet Noble Drew Ali, commerce is not as talked about as strongly as the situations demand. Commerce is the lifeblood of every nation, state, and city. As long as a state allows its citizens to become economically crippled, the state itself remains economically stagnant. The more a city or state invests into its citizens, the higher quality of life its citizens will have. There's no doubt that the more economically secure a society is, the more currency the state will generate. It is therefore the responsibility of its citizens to organize and get access to zero interest-bearing grants, cash, and surpluses from the city and state governments to ensure the perpetual cycle of equitable and prosperous commerce amongst all classes of society. The commercial activity of a society is not only based on supply and demand, but is rooted on the overall happiness of the customer. If the buyer is not economically secure within their own home due to the cost of living, it results in stagflation. High inflation combined with high unemployment, resulting in a poor quality of life and the stagnant demand in a country's economy. Most companies work hard to determine the root cause of customer dissatisfaction, and so could governments in relation to the satisfaction of their citizens and their economic interests. Most businesses focus on the customer satisfaction by tailoring products and services to fit perfectly into their customers' lives. These companies make it easier for their happy customers to buy more and stay longer. And when all classes of society have equal opportunity to funding without chicanery and the colorable force of adhesion contracts, then everyone has equal opportunity and the nation prospers. A society that invests in itself commercially via education, training, and erudition without immense burdens or negative adhesion, especially with imitable paper as a circulating medium, will indeed prove equal opportunity for all. Moors being indigenous people, we do not have to be held to any contract that adversely affects us in a negative way or compromises our national, social, economic, and private integrity. Just as it is stated in the Constitution and our treaty with the United States, no obligation shall be placed on contracts, and we the people have the right to association, meaning once we establish programs with the state and municipal governments, we cannot be denied access to funding for any reason whatsoever as long as our status is correct. It is stated in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People that states shall provide effective measures where appropriate and special measures to ensure our economic conditions as a people increase. Our increase in commerce will ipso facto and ipso jure increase the commercial wealth of all members of society and American citizens alike. This means access to business startup grants and other finances to support our organized endeavors as a people. Rise Moors, and help us revert to our national standing. It is through commerce that essential governmental infrastructures are established and maintained, such as wages for public workers and the maintenance of courts of justice and others. The ability to interact with other nations in a peaceful manner is almost always due to commerce and trade. Without this practice, we may never know an equal, healthy, and honest relationship with other nations, therefore damaging our opportunity to make, establish, and have allies to our nation. We'd like to thank you all. Well, we'd like to thank all the Moors who've been patronizing all of our enterprises here at Rise of the Moors. We greatly appreciate support. I definitely do. I personally would like to remind all of you active, civic-minded Moors to stay true to your fidelity. Keep pushing this divine and national movement despite all opposition. Smile in their face. Like Simba said in The Lion King, I laugh in the face of danger.
Ha 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 ha.
The Quran that Drew Ali prepared for us teaches that here, on this plane of manifest, we tarry many ages until our lessons are all learned up. In the great Quran of Muhammad, it teaches us to fight in the name of Allah and reject those who reject freedom and faith. Be wary of the people who pretend to be honestly interested in the Moorish movement. They are useless, even dangerous intruders. They know well that the spiritual path is hard to travel except for those who were created for that purpose. And that it is impossible to become truly active if one is not born that way. During this great humanitarian work of teaching our people about our birthrights and national origin, while simultaneously fighting off colonial opposition, things can take a toll on us. The road may get tiring, but remember in Quran, Surah 2, Ayat 286, which means chapter 2, verse 286, that Allah never puts a burden on anyone that they cannot handle. Hold on to those powerful words of Prophet Noble Drew Ali that there's enough work within this movement for all of us to do. Remember, no matter how big or small your task is, all of our works contribute to the rise of the Moors. And with all, I'm going to read what the prophet wrote. So we're going to end with the prophet, especially on his birthday. All right? It is a sad weakness in us, after all, to oppose our fellow men for their religious beliefs. And if there are angels who record the sorrows of men as well as their sins, they certainly know how many and how deep are the useless sorrows that spring forth from such opposition. Possibly love and time will conceal our ancient hatreds in this regard and prove that in mankind tolerance is better than unwarranted opposition. In conjunction with our religious aims and beliefs, we must promote economic security. The preaching of economic security amongst us is by no means as widespread and intensive as the circumstances demand. No other one thing is more needed amongst us at this time than greater economic power. And we talk about what we need as a nation of people and what's always the determining factor. People's participation, so numbers and finance. Can't have one without the other. Nope. That's why every business department has something called what? Human resources. Possibly love and time will conceal our ancient hatreds in this regard and prove that in mankind tolerance is better than unwarranted opposition. In conjunction with our religious aims and beliefs, we must promote economic security. The preaching of economic security amongst us is by no means as widely spread and intensive as the circumstances demand. No other thing is more needed amongst us at this time than greater economic power. Better positions for our men and women, more business employment for our boys and girls, and bigger incomes will follow our economic security. We shall be secure in nothing until we have economic power. A beggar people cannot develop the highest in them, nor can they attain to a genuine enjoyment of the spiritualities of life. Our men, women, and children should be taught to believe in the capacity of our group to succeed in business in spite of the trials and failures of some of them. Trials and failures in business are by no means confined to any particular group of people. Some business ventures of all people fail. We have many men and women amongst our people who are qualified, both by training and experience, who are shining lights in the business world of all the people. Is it a sad weakness in us all as a people that we have withheld the very encouragement, support, and patronage that would have made some of our worthy business ventures a grand success? And worst of all, we have joined in the condemnations of them when they fail. Except in cases of actual dishonesty, discourtesy, and lack of service and actual unreliability, our business enterprises in every field of endeavor should have lulled of confidence, cooperation, and patronage whenever and wherever they can be given. Read carefully the doctrines of the Moor Science Temple of America. It contains our hopes, aims, and rules, articles of religion, etc. Every member should have a copy. That's why we have everything posted on this board over here. In conclusion, I urge you to remember there is enough work for all to do in helping to build a better world. The problems of life are largely social and economic. In a profound sense, they are moral and spiritual. Have lofty conceptions of your duties to your country and fellow men in general, and especially to those whom you deal. This includes such honesty and righteousness as will cause you to put yourself in the other fellow's place. Look for the best in others and give them the best that is in you. Have a deeper appreciation for womanhood. Brighten the hopes of our youth in order that their courage be increased to dare and do wondrous things. Adhere to all times to the principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I'm your affectionate leader. I shall continue to labor day and night, both in public and private, for your good, thereby contributing to the welfare of your country and its people. Prophet Noble Drali, excuse me.
Islam is